You are listening to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael, you know how they be. They like to debate, deliberate the Mount Rushmore of any given topic, and this week's topic is the Mount Rushmore of TV shows that went on for way too long. Richard chose it. Why did you choose it?
I believe that I was making a reference at one point to one of the shows I'll be talking about.
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking about other shows that had been on for too long.
Not to be suspect that this podcast has gone on for way too long, but I believe we might have at some point discussed the Mount Rushmore of jumping the shark. Have we done that?
I think a couple of episodes, some people would say that it's gone on far too long.
Yeah,
So
okay, whether we have or not.
Right. It's
Well, I
don't necessarily think they are two separate things. I mean, or two same thing.
Yeah, I think we can delineate between the
Jumping
two.
the shark just seems to reference when a show just kind of goes off the rails and is just not the show that it used to be.
Yeah.
which can be a symptom of the show going too long, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
There are other symptoms of a show going on.
And it could
too
also
long.
be a standout episode that is the indicator of why that when that show is kind of turned sour.
For sure,
So,
yeah.
Okay, Richard chose the topic, so Michael starts the discussion.
Well, of course, I'm going to start with Happy Days.
Okay. Happy Days.
Little on the nose, but sure.
But it's not for the jumping the shark reasons
Okay.
that Jeff mentioned. It's
Fair
because
enough.
at some point, people grow out of a show, and shows
Yeah.
change. The show that was about Richie Cunningham and Potsy and Ralph Malph and
Oh, yeah.
to
his
and
wacky high school adventures.
yeah, and to some extent, Fonzie became a show where Fonzie started getting more popular, but also, Ron Howard started growing up and he wanted to go move on from being Richie Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
And in like the 8th season, like 1980, still playing a show that's about 20 years before.
Yeah.
He and Ralph Malph leave the show.
Yeah.
The actor that played Ralph, I can't remember his name right now.
Is that Donnie
Most.
Donnie
Sure.
Most. They go and join the army, as one does. And the show gets transitioned to a show about Fonz, and a show about Chachi,
Yeah.
and a show about, Joni,
Yeah.
Richie's little sister.
Mhm.
And at that point, what was endearing about the show was it was a show about this one character, and it starts to transition to something else, even though it still has these elements.
Yeah.
And I think those are the clues that maybe the show went too long, and maybe it was a year or two before this that Fonzie literally jumped the shark on his motorcycle or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the death knell of the show. Not necessarily the death knell. That's not when the show probably should have ended, but probably a good turning point is Richie leaving.
Yeah.
That's I think that's a one that's not universal, but at least that we can say is a typical sign that the show has now reached past its expiration date.
Yeah.
Is when the main character leaves and they decide, well, we're going to keep on going with the show.
Yeah.
It almost never works. I mean, I'm sure we can come up with exceptions to the rule, but they are exceptions to the rule 90% of the time. Once the main character leaves, it's time to shut it down.
I think, too, there was some other moments on the show where, it was predominantly set in 1950s Milwaukee or the suburbs of Milwaukee. And they started, the show started aging. You can tell when, like, the hairstyles of the characters change, and it stops feeling like 1955.
Yeah.
They made a big change in one late season, is they burned down Al's Diner so that they could update it to something that doesn't look like the 50s and something that looks like the 60s.
Yeah.
So they wrote an episode just about like doing a set redo and a redecoration that just kind of reflected a change of, it's almost like watching Mad Men, how it transitions from the 60s to the 70s, and it just starts feeling weird. It's like, this isn't the office that was endearing and interesting. It's something strange, and I think the same thing kind of happened. Is like, oh, this isn't the 50s diner. This is now this something else.
Yeah. In terms of permutations, that show had a few permutations from the initial version, from what I understand, it was designed to be, or at least he thought it to be, Tom Bosley thought himself to be the center of the show. It was like a father knows best type of show, where Tom Bosley was kind of the Fred McMurray or the Danny Thomas of the thing.
Tom Bosley was a fucking idiot.
Yeah, and
agents will say anything to get you to re-up their contract.
Well, I think he resented the fact that this kid, Henry Winkler, was kind of stealing a show, and the audience was responding to this guy. So
this 30-year-old kid.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like it did an initial permutation to get to the success that it was when they kind of found their stride with Fonzie and the gang, So it's kind of funny that did that. And was it you were describing at its end that seemed to be teeing up for Happy Days 2000 with Joni Loves Chachi and
it just became kids. It seemed to turn into a springboard for other things. I mean, at some point Fonzie became a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's like, well, I guess so.
You know what I think this puts a fine point on is that this debate is driven by our questioning of the artistic values of the show, when the reality is television, at least almost all the shows that some of the people, and we did crowdsource some answers. Television is an advertiser's medium. It's networks trying to sell something that Ford or Johnson & Johnson.
Sure, they make their money off of advertising.
Yeah. So it's not about what's artistic value, it's of economic value.
It's also, I think, a show that's successful that can remain on the air for 10, 12 seasons, at some point it stops becoming the thing that you remember that it was, and it becomes something that you wish you wanted it to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they weren't all happy days.
They were not, indeed. Okay, man, Freddie.
All right, so my first one is the show that kind of got me thinking about this, and it is the NBC sitcom Wings.
Wow, Wings. Okay, cool.
This is sort of my go-to show whenever I want to mention a mediocre but long-running sitcom.
Yeah.
I that's what I think of when I think of Wings.
Okay.
The show was on for 8 seasons. 8 seasons!
Wow.
This thing was on. It was on, and it was on during the must-see TV, prime viewing period. I believe it was on right after Cheers for a good portion of its time.
One of those nice shows that you could sandwich in between something, that you would pick up the viewers from the earlier viewing to the second one, or between like Seinfeld and ER.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna get some part of an audience because of that.
They're just going to hang around.
Yeah.
As long as you don't move them to like Friday nights, they're fine.
Yeah, well, as soon as they go to Friday nights, they're dead because they don't have a built. Nobody was like, what my favorite show is? Wings.
Wings.
I sure love the wacky adventures of those two brothers. Let me check.
Pausing to look up
Joe and Brian, because nobody would remember that. Yeah.
Was that a show? Was Wings technically a spin-off of Cheers?
Yes, or it at least was. I don't know that it was a spin-off. It was at least set in the same universe.
Is that right?
So like when
the Dark Cheers universe,
yeah. So every once in a while, like Sam Mayday Malone would show up because he's taking a vacation to Nantucket, and so he'd show up and they'd have a wacky adventure. And
okay, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and had a great cast.
Oh yeah. See, I think of that's when we met Tony Shalhoub and
Brian and Thomas Hayden
Church. Yeah.
Yeah, breakout stars of this show that I know I watched this show. My mom and I watched this show when it was on because, as you said, I believe it was on in between 2 other shows that we liked, and it was fine.
Yeah,
it was mildly entertaining. There was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
I can't tell you a single
plot
episode or plot or anything about it, but it lasted for 8 seasons. To your point, Jeff, because it was good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough for the sponsors.
It was kind of Taxi meets Cheers in a airport terminal.
It was like Taxi Light.
Yeah.
It had one of those sets, too, that was so... it became like a very classic sitcom set where you had multiple things going on the same... Like, you had multiple businesses operating at the same time.
Right.
Like you had whatever the...
You had Sandpiper Air.
There you go. And then you also had like a coffee shop, and you also had all these little elements that could have everybody play at the same time.
Right.
That you'd later see on like the John Larroquette show, where it was like set in a bus terminal. It was basically the same thing. It was like the John Larroquette show. If Wings was Taxi Light, then the John Larroquette show was Wings Light.
That's talk about damning with faint praise right there. So I just have this on here because the fact that this thing ran for there was nothing structurally about this show that should have had it last for 8 seasons. It really was a beneficiary of real estate. And
it's got a, what do they call it? It's
the bump.
The bump from the previous thing. Okay.
Yeah, we got the lead in or the lead out.
Yeah.
And it kind of was the sandwich.
Yeah.
And that's why it was on the air for 8 seasons, essentially, which just blows my mind.
I would say that I think looking at this cast, when people think of Cheers, or people think of show like Friends, and some people did mention Friends in the crowdsource, and I will be dropping some of those. It is a cast that I look back and I think they all had feature film careers or other TV careers, and some of them in comedy, and some of them even in drama. I think all of them were also attractive and nothing objectionable about any of these people necessarily, your main cast. And I think that's true with Friends. But I would say the comedy chops are underrated for some of these performers.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because if it was lightweight from a content standpoint, these people were so
affable.
Affable, yeah.
That's a good word, I think, affable.
I don't think any guys had a Crystal Bernard poster up on his wall, but she was nice to look at.
Or did any ladies have a Tony Shalhoub poster up on their walls? Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know.
That's up to you. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with Friends.
Yeah.
Or with Wings.
Yeah.
It's just that it's 8 years.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Who'd
have thunk it? Yeah.
Who is the person that was clamoring for the Wings box set that contains all 8 seasons?
Oh, yeah, I wonder.
Like, this must exist out there when there was the big DVD-ness of the late 90s, early 2000s, when everyone was like, everything's got to get onto it.
Yeah.
Your goal was to get to a DVD box set.
Yeah, I bet it was like a lunchbox or metal, or shaped like a plane or something like that, or carry-on.
Here's my proof for Wings. I'd never see it on syndication.
Yeah.
On Nick at Night. Or it's just you don't see it.
A
show that ran for 8 seasons from the 90s, which is prime. This is nostalgia for the 90s time. You would think that this would be on Nick at Night at like 11:30 at night, but I don't know that. I don't believe that it is.
Also, when you hear podcasts advertising for Hulu and all the amazing content of all the shows of yesteryear that you can watch and catch up on, and oh my God, you can go back and you can watch He-Man, or you can go back and watch Cheers, whatever it is. No one mentioned Wings.
No.
Wings box set available on Amazon for $27.87.
That's a pretty good price.
That's like only a couple of bucks per season.
$3 a season for Wings.
$3.50 per season, something like that. Yeah,
hey,
can't beat it.
You want to go in on one?
I get the odd seasons. You get the even seasons.
Done and done.
All right.
Winfield, what is your second choice?
I hate to say it, but The Simpsons.
Okay.
Also on my list.
All right, then you each get, I don't know, I forget how we do this point thing.
Double points,
because we had a lot of folks who were mad at The Simpsons. And now that's an unprecedented story there, because is it not the longest running television show or animated television?
It's the longest running television sitcom, and it's been on for over 30 years.
It hasn't passed Gunsmoke yet?
Gunsmoke wasn't a sitcom.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It hasn't passed Gunsmoke yet. I believe it did.
I don't know. They were about
Gunsmoke was radio, too.
The Simpsons are about to come back for whatever, if it's 30 or 31st season, and they're about to have their 666th episode, which is their Halloween episode.
Oh, perfect.
Come out on Halloween. So they know what they're doing in terms of timing.
Yeah.
But this is a show that I was such a fervent admirer and consumer of.
That you invented the word fervent.
for like the first decade.
Yes.
And then
tattoo on your arm, dyed in the wool. Yeah.
Then fell off, or it was one of those shows that I kept watching for another 5 to 7 years and just didn't laugh at.
Yeah.
And you kept laughing, thinking that it would somehow get better.
Yes.
And the problem was, let's say season 12 to 14, there would occasionally be a good episode.
Yes.
Enough just to kind of keep you sucked in.
I think So I would like to name check some of the very, very awesome online responders, the people on Facebook that responded to our crowdsource when we went out and asked, what show do you believe, a television show, has been on for far too long and why? These folks responded. Joe Dungan, he was the first person to bravely step forth and say, Simpsons, fight me. Troy Tatsko, without a doubt, The Simpsons, guesstimating around 14th or 15th season is when
that seems about right.
Isn't that insane, by the way, that that's how long the show has been on the air, that we're like, only the first 14 seasons were good.
Mike McGowan, Simpsons. And now, at some point, I think it's interesting to speculate why that's even possible. If were it not to be animated, these people would be decrepit, like Crypt Keeper-looking versions of themselves.
Sure, the kids would have aged out.
Yeah.
I mean, Marge has always sounded like Marge, so, Julie Kavner doesn't have to do too much to change her voice over the years. I'm at the stage now, I have two big things going on with me right now. One, I want the show to go on for forever now.
Yeah.
Because I want it to go into, fuck you mode. Where it's we've been on for 32 years. Guess what? Here's another 10.
Yeah.
And just be like, why not? It's an animated show. It's the staple of the Fox network.
Yeah.
It is it is not... If it is the most iconic cartoon in the past 30 years, literally, they've just owned the space.
Ever
for so long. But also, Disney owns Fox now.
Yep.
I am super excited. Well, for my child to see a bunch of Disney stuff on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited to watch The Simpsons again on Disney Plus. Because they're all going to be out there. I'm really excited to just start plowing through them from the ones that I remember from when I was a kid to all the stuff that I've missed. And maybe my opinion of this will change. Maybe just going through it and being like, you know what? Maybe I was just a cynical 20-something-year-old.
Yeah.
And then I let all of it overwhelm me. So I'm now excited to watch season 27 that might not be very good, but maybe it's actually better than I think.
Who's watching The Simpsons right now?
That is a good question.
It's not people our age, because I think universally people our age have the same sort of reaction to The Simpsons, like, oh, it used to be great.
Yeah.
I follow a Simpsons screen cap thing on Twitter that just posts a random screen cap, but it's only from seasons 1 through 9.
Yeah.
That is the age.
I would say.
So is it millennials who are like, oh, well, we're watching it, but we're really watching the newer episodes, or are people who are coming up finding The Simpsons when they reach a certain age? Are they also going back and watching the classic
does it probably
episodes?
have an international footprint? So it probably has a global audience.
Oh, sure. They have all the episodes that are dubbed in various languages. Yeah.
I would also say Fox, of all the things, so now that it's gone away from entertainment and into an institution, Fox knows it can't cancel The Simpsons because the public outcry of people who haven't seen it in a lot. It'd be like saying, let's close the library.
Yeah.
A million people would say, no, we can't close. And then they would ask, when's the last time you were in a library? Oh, I don't know. But don't close the library.
I think that feels very accurate. And now that Disney owns them, it feels like they have just so much more money to just be well, it'll just go on for forever.
I think what Disney also does
go ahead.
Is make people care about intellectual property that they've stopped enjoying from an entertainment standpoint and making them embrace it from an iconic standpoint.
Yes. Yeah. I think that,
so that might be, they might kind of Mickeyfy these characters, find some way to put it in front of people, which now that it's in, I think now that it's in Disney Plus, and now we don't have to buy box sets, now that we're not watching the repeats that have been trimmed a little bit to add extra commercials.
That's the other thing. It would be very interesting to go back and watch a Simpsons episode that originally aired in 1994 that I have this memory of, that I saw originally, then saw it on rerun, but it was 20 minutes instead of 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't remember that joke. I don't remember this thing that I could have only seen on a box set.
I didn't know Abe got a harmonica in that.
Lobster harmonica.
Yeah. No, I just wonder if with The Simpsons, if let's say next year's season was in theory the first season of The Simpsons, like it had like we all collectively had our memories wiped of The Simpsons. and the first thing we saw was season 31.
Yeah.
Would we look at that and go, "Oh, this is not very good," or would we go,
"We just got yesterday'd"?
Yeah, this This is really pretty good.
Yeah, I gotta say that they've outlived the memory, not only the things that they satirized, but the memory of those things that they satirized. So when the Simpsons are there, it was kind of a middle finger, a very kind middle finger, or yellow middle finger.
I don't know. They only got
on a
four
four-fingered hand.
Fingers, yeah.
To some things on television, like Letterman. Like Letterman was kind of giving a view askew to some things on television that he outlasted. So
true.
Maybe that's why. We are at the halftime of this episode of the Mount Rushmore of TV shows that went on way too long. But you know what? We're digging in our heels at the Mount Rushmore podcast. We're going to be around for a long time, and we could use your point of view on what we do for future episodes. If you'd like to get in the conversation about topics that you would like for us to discuss, please go to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and let your choice be known as to what topic you would like to hear Richard and Michael debate. And you may actually get into the dialogue yourself. Previous listeners have suggested topics, and they ended up being guests on the show. That's not a requirement, but it could happen. And we'd also like you to do us a solid. Go back into the vault.
There it is. Our good old friend, the vault.
The wooden door vault. And download, rate, and review some past episodes just for good time's sake. You can hear back when Richard and I and Michael were young, going through puberty. Our voices changed during the whole time
before
of the
we
show.
replaced Richard with a different version of Richard.
That's right.
Hey, guys, what are you talking about?
Oh, it's just our good friend Richard, not any kind of new Richard.
I'm Ted McGinley.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
The voice of Richard.
Oh, no.
On the Mount Rushmore
Oh,
podcast.
well, yes. You can go back and see all the permutations of the Mount Rushmore podcast and see our different hairstyles and the crazy clothes we wore back in the 70s and stuff like that. Do that. But while you're doing that, give us 5 stars because you know you want to. And we are back. Richard, what do you got?
MASH.
MASH.
One of my favorite shows of all time.
That's a great suggestion.
It's a great show
Yeah.
and ran for 3 times as long as the actual Korean War.
Oh, it did? Okay.
So, yeah, 11 seasons. And maybe could have gone about, I don't know, 8 seasons.
Yeah.
Would have been great if they could have stopped after that.
Yeah.
I am a big MASH fan, and I have one of those big, like, kind of coffee table type books about the show.
Yeah.
And they're talking to they have interviews with a lot of the writers and people who had been on the show for a really long, or the behind the scenes people. And they start talking about, like, right around season 8, season 9, they started literally running out of plot ideas. This is a sign the show needs to go away.
Yeah.
There were times where they would start doing an episode, they would write it, go through it, start shooting it, and then someone would go, "Oh wait, didn't we do this basic plot point in season 3?
Wow.
Oh well, too late now." Again, that's a sign that maybe you've been on the air a bit too long.
That was one of those things that was it Family Guy or not Family Guy? It was South Park would eventually make fun of in terms of, oh, the Simpsons did it first. When they would start to write an episode and realize that the Simpsons had already done this, and that they were like, oh yeah, this has already been it. This idea has been something that the Simpsons have done. I love the idea that MASH did it with their own show.
Yeah, they literally couldn't get out of their own way, and they would start getting. Apparently, they would get suggestions for plot points or episode ideas from actual former Korean War doctors, and they'd have to say, "Well, no, we already did that one. Thanks for the suggestion, but we already did that."
Ken Levine has a great blog and podcast.
He does, yeah.
And talks about MASH a lot. And it seems like that was also a great show for writing teams. I mean, Larry Gelbart aside, but then there were really good groups that wrote as a team that kind of developed their entire career. I think it doesn't hurt when you on such a high-profile show like that. Then you can make your career off of it and then go off to another show or something.
And you had this idea that, Alan Alda went from being the star, but a star out of an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
To by the end, he was bigger than the show.
Yeah.
I mean, he was directing episodes, writing episodes. He had he was the one who basically pushed it from this kind of comedy that had sort of dramatic elements to really more of almost a dramedy.
Yeah.
By the end.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that happens on these shows where they they kind of get tired of having the same type of show the whole time. And it's natural for a show to transition, I think, a little bit over the course of its run. But I think whenever it starts to become fundamentally different than what the show was that you originally loved. I mean, you watch the first couple of seasons of MASH and you watch the last couple of seasons and the tone is just wildly different. And they started doing all those sort of kind of avant-garde sort of like one-off episodes where like you're seeing all their dreams.
It's a documentary feel.
Or it's like from the perspective of a soldier who's in the ER.
Like my dad, who was on MASH.
Was he?
He played.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
He played some sort of, like a guy in a bed.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Did his British accent stand out?
I don't know.
Or did he do it with an American accent?
I gotta find it. He was probably played a British RAF officer who was gunned down and this,
So I love MASH. This is again not a knock on MASH, but 8 seasons, that probably would have been pretty good.
I'm fascinated with MASH and Alice as 2 shows that came from dramatic films by Raging Bull auteur directors,
right?
And became these just comedic bubblegum confectionaries.
And Altman hated the TV series.
Did he? I could only imagine.
Yeah, he thought it was just basically, taking this serious work that he had put together about the serious sort of, critique of Vietnam and just turning it into like a wacky sitcom.
Yeah.
Altman turns to Mad Magazine. Let's see first through. Mush.
Mush. Oh.
Right, you got it.
Ooh, never saw that one coming.
Nailed him.
Oh. Okay, Winfield.
My third choice is American Idol, which
Wow.
is a show that was about talent. It was basically a singing competition. However, you really tuned in for the people that were judging the people on the stage.
Oh, okay.
I think it was a show less about, because a talent competition and a singing competition isn't necessarily that interesting.
Yeah.
It was really about watching Simon Cowell just be a total a-hole to these people.
And Randy. And
then Randy be there with this kind of like milquetoast, I don't feel you, dog, sort of comments. And then Paula Abdul was out there in her kind of tepid, milk toasty kind of just Paula. But the show was about those 3. And they judged people and told people that they thought they were good or not.
Yeah.
But right around 2009, it was on for maybe 7 or 8 seasons. They changed. They added Cara DiGuardi. So she was like, whoever this person is, she was like the 4th judge up there. And then the next year, Paula Abdul left, and they added Ellen DeGeneres. And that after that season, Simon left. And I think those sorts of changes, when the people that you tuned in to watch the show really, sure, they had a lot of great singers that came out of it and people that went on to have like pop success and music success.
Yeah.
But it was really about watching Simon Cowell.
Yeah.
And when he left, they continued on with the show as if people wanted to tune in to watch Randy Jackson. And I don't think anybody really tuned in to watch him. They would bring in Steven Tyler, and they'd bring in Nicki Minaj, and they'd bring in
Katy Perry.
All these different people that were like famous people, but you're not there really to watch those famous people. You were there to watch Simon be like a total asshole to these people.
The Ellen DeGeneres one is the weirdest one because she's not a singer.
Yeah.
What does she know? What does she know?
Yeah.
She knows how to
dance.
She knows
awkwardly.
She knows what she likes, and American Idol has spawned all these other different types of shows, especially one that like Simon Cowell went on to do, which is like the X Factor. Is that what it's called?
And now he's on America's Got Talent.
America's Got Talent. So like all of these different things that you tune in because you want to see him be awful to people for their talents or lack thereof.
Yeah. It does seem like on both sides. In the open auditions, it's a freak show, car wreck.
Well, that is an interesting thing, whether to watch the show, to watch it back when it first came on in 2004, 5?
Sure, it's your pick, so
2000? I can't remember exactly. When the show originally came out, they had a bevy of people that were auditioning that clearly shouldn't have been, and the focus was definitely on making fun of these people. I don't think a show like this would come out now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
In our current, more aware and woke and accepting kind of nature of entertainment and be like, oh, yeah, let's not put this person that's not very good on.
Mm-hmm. Did Disney renew it? I think
they brought it back on NBC or ABC, right?
Yeah.
ABC, I believe it was a few years ago.
Yeah, it's ABC, yeah. So I knew when Disney was bringing it back, it was going to be less about the freak show and more about a talent show.
But I think that show really probably could have ended when Simon Cowell left, and it still went on for another 4 or 5 years before they were like, okay, well, I guess there are all these other talent competitions that feature him that's not us. So
yeah. What's sad is Cowell has in these other Got Talents and not X Factor, but Got Talents have kept the TV variety show kind of alive, because that's used to be you could turn on the TV in prime time and see a guy juggling plates, then a tap dance team, and then a singer, and then a celebrity, and then
Emily and I have been watching live TV for the first time in forever since football's back on the air. And like Felix is a little bit older, so he can kind of run around and play and kind of tune. He does not care about watching football. It's not interesting at all. It's all like,
good boy.
Can we just put on My Neighbor Totoro? And we're like, okay, that's totally fine. But like seeing commercials again is weird, and seeing commercials for The Masked Singer, another pseudo talent show with just famous people in dopey costumes. It's like, how many of these things are there? And then you realize there's half a dozen that's on at all times.
Yeah. Manfredi, is this your last one?
This is my last one. So we talked about Ron Howard in the context of Happy Days.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about him sort of subtly, pseudo or a little bit, in the context of the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh, I thought you were going Arrested. Okay.
No. That could have, no. I remember thinking that could have had more seasons.
Yeah.
Then they did more seasons, and I went, maybe they should have left it where it was.
Yeah.
But no, the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
Ran for, I believe, 8 or 9 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, really didn't have any. Most of the characters were not there anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, so let's see. By the end, Don Knotts had left, replaced briefly by Jack Burns.
Yeah.
Which went over like a lead balloon.
Oh yeah.
Let's see who else. Oh, Gomer Pyle had left, replaced by Goober. Floyd the Barber had his stroke.
Vidal Sassoon came in to replace
Floyd the Barber. No, that would have been an improvement, because remember, Floyd the Barber, the actor, had a stroke.
That's right.
About midway through
Earl Spencer. Yeah. We've joked about this.
Yeah. Andy.
Hey, Opie, come run your hair into my scissors so I can give you a haircut.
Yeah. When you're stuck putting cast members with severe, debilitating conditions on the air.
Yeah.
This is also another sign that the show might be running a little long in the tooth. But again, a great show, and one that CBS felt like they couldn't get rid of, because it was such a powerhouse from a rating standpoint that even after Andy Griffith left the show, they couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
Which is why they transitioned it from the Andy Griffith Show to Mayberry RFD. It was a direct. It wasn't even like a spinoff. They basically just
renamed
it and had Ken Berry up there and said, "Oh, everyone will love it," because there's no difference between Andy Griffith and Ken Berry.
No,
literally the same talent.
Same exact.
Yeah, just a show that was, I think, was certainly a time capsule of a certain era.
Yeah.
And I think by the time the show's run ended, comedy and television had kind of moved past it. And so I think that from that standpoint, it was definitely a type of show that probably could have stayed in the time capsule. I mean, there's a reason why CBS, after a few seasons, wound up canceling all of the hayseed shows.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a show whose time had definitely come and then probably gone by the time it left.
I think there was a purposeful desire to attract a higher end sponsor or advertisers by canceling their hayseed shows and becoming a more sophisticated network.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They were the Tiffany network.
But
yet they had Mayberry RFD and Petticoat Junction and all these rural type shows.
Yeah, which is interesting. I find that fascinating, because it seemed like it kind of the rural version of the shows when Laugh-In was so successful, then Hee Haw came out, which I think might have been in syndication though. And
it was on
CBS.
CBS. No, actually, it was on CBS, and
Was
it was part of the Hayseed
Okay.
purge.
Wow.
And
okay.
then it went into syndication.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's fast because I think that's some of the best television there ever was. The original Andy Griffith
sure.
show. Yeah. And think of forming a young Ron Howard sensibility from a storytelling standpoint. Like every show had some kind of message, and it had a pacing that was kind of unprecedented. It almost felt like it was left over from a radio drama where the morality came at you in this almost like time release capsule.
You didn't realize you were being hit with a moral of
Yeah.
the moral of the story until the very end, and you're like, oh wait,
Yeah.
they're actually saying something
Yeah.
here.
I read a book about Andy Griffith, and oh my God, for as paternal and fatherly and laconic as he was, this book was all about the orgies he to go have on this private island.
Are you sure you're not talking about A Face in the Crowd?
No,
Is that the book you read?
Not the Kazan thing, but yeah, that's so crazy. Yeah, the guy was messed up.
You know, the show ran too long when like Opie at the end had grown up and was like sticking up people and
Yeah.
shoving
Right.
knives in their
Yeah.
faces, and his dad had to throw him in jail to get him cleaned up and set straight.
Aunt B, Opie, what are you doing with that
Shut
gun?
up, bitch. I'll cut you.
Otis had cleaned up and was running a rehab center in the town. Okay, Winfield, your last choice.
Saturday Night Live.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, that's a controversial
Okay.
pick,
For
I'm sure.
purely selfish reasons, I no longer want to stay up till 11:30 at night to watch some kind of mediocre, tepid skits. Most of them are not very good.
Yeah.
I do not want to have a Hulu subscription on top of my Disney Plus subscription. And I realized I only had Hulu so I could watch SNL the following morning. And quite frankly, the best episodes are the ones that happened when I was in high school, like everybody. Depends on
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Whatever your high school
Whatever
was.
your high school
Yeah.
experience of SNL, that was when it was the best.
But to be fair, ours was the best because it had Phil Hartman.
Oh my God, it was
So
the
it's the
best.
That's the best.
You know, it was so good. You know, Adam Sandler is so funny, and Dana Carvey and Mike Myers. It was the best.
I've kind of, I don't envy comedians in the era of Trump and the era of
It has been a long 4 years on
Yeah.
SNL, and maybe that's part of it. Where it's just like every show opens with the same sort of Trumpian, cold open sketch about the latest thing that he's done, and I'd spent an entire week already predicting the jokes that they were going to make and that have been made better on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just sitting there just like, oh, they're going to do a dumbed down version of this or an over the top, or they're going to choose an angle on this that is so
Yeah.
There's a funny way to get in through the back door, but instead they just go right through the open front door.
Yeah, and like maybe it's also just getting older and just I can't stay up to watch this thing that used to be like the thing that we stayed up to watch anymore. And it doesn't feel like it is as instrumental a springboard for talent to the next generation of people that we're going to watch on movies. And like that's what, it felt like that was this thing, and maybe it's still happening, but maybe I just don't care about those people as much. I don't know.
See, I would say this about SNL, at least in the way things are today. How I watch SNL is I don't watch it, except if someone tells me, if I hear from multiple people, hey, there was one really funny sketch last night.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can go to the NBC.com website and they've got the individual sketches up. And I'll just catch it a week later whenever they make those sketches public.
Yeah.
And that's how I catch it.
This show also feels like it is being held on by Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
Like this is a show that will ultimately change, like the way it changed after he left after 5 years. It is a show that now, for the last 30 something years that he's reclaimed it and that has made it like part of his identity, or that is so infused. It's almost like Richard, what's the guy? This is so stupid. Mr. McMahon, that would sit at
Vince McMahon?
Yeah, that would sit at like the gorilla position and just like dictate everything that was going to happen. I mean, I think he still does to an extent.
Still screaming into the announcers' ears as they're trying to commentate. Yes.
But Lorne is definitely in like the gorilla position for the show. It feels like that whatever he says goes. He still has it's still driven by him.
His personal
70-something-year-old.
I would speculate that he is both what's killing and keeping that show on, because what the stunt I love to see happen is the guest star appearance. So if you see Ryan Gosling, with his shirt off on a unicycle,
yes,
you're not going to see that anywhere else on television. And nobody does that unless Lorne Michaels says, "Come do this." So if he were to leave, I don't think we would see the star power on that show that we would before. But since he's staying, his cronyism is keeping that show lukewarm, because he's got so much at stake in terms of maintaining relationships. He's got other shows.
I know he produces half the shows on late night
he has
as well.
seated kings in positions in late night television, and he's got advertisers. He is the joke where Wayne Campbell is got the Doritos bag, and he's doing the product placement. Mm-hmm. That's that show. It's got too many ties into industry, and it's joking that it's I don't know. I think that's the problem.
The thing about SNL is it used to be like there were certain things you could count on with the show. One of them was that Weekend Update would be really funny, and it's not anymore.
It's I will say that we watch it through, when we were watching it, we'd watch it through Weekend Update, and usually it was the guys are pretty good. They're not my favorite two anchors, but they're not bad.
You could have stopped at not my favorite for me and would have that. And then the other thing is, it used to be one of the few places where you could see potentially your favorite acts do live music.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
And yes, every once in a while they'll have St. Vincent on or somebody that I care about. But 95% of the time, it's the latest pop act.
I just love.
It's a fast forward for us. Yeah.
I would do a whole Instagram of Don Pardo saying faded band names, like, and now the Ting Tings.
Crash Test Dummies.
Crash Test Dummies.
Because that was always in the intro. You'd have to do it. You'd have to do a duo. You'd have to do the intro, and then you'd get whatever
guest.
actors introducing them right in the middle, standing up there being Crash Test Dummies.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the list of choices that Michael and Richard have for the Mount Rushmore of shows that went on way too long. And now I would like to thank some of our online submitters and list off some of the things that they mentioned. And I will say that two of these choices are going to be the right choices because they are crowdsourced, and the crowd is always right because this is the Roman Coliseum.
I love that he's just punting. Yeah, Richard's throwing the big thumbs down, and a tiger is being released to scratch his
There are
face
some generalizations. Any soap opera, said Lori Kessinger, and now there's really only like one soap opera, so that doesn't even matter. Some also people said any show that has been on the air for more than 3 years. And that actually made me think about how we've discussed in the past shows on the BBC in which they really have a limited run. Maybe it's 12 episodes.
Also, like a show that is on our list to watch, but like Fleabag, which is like 2 seasons, and she's done.
Yeah.
She's like, this was the show.
It
was
the show.
2 seasons.
Yeah.
Do not think that we're coming back for
I had a point A, and I wanted to get it to point B,
Yeah.
and we got it there, and we're done.
Yeah, because the BBC is paying for the show. It's not like Colgate. Zoe Sanford said that any show past 3. And there are a few other reality TV suggestions. Real Housewives was one that Christy Patterson, Veach, and...
Not according to your wife.
Yeah, whoa, it almost sounded like
it sounds like something weird, but I really just meant that every time we come over to the luxurious Mount Rushmore podcast studios, otherwise known as Jeff's Garage.
Oh, it's always on.
Yeah, it's always on in the living room.
Juliana Prophet McCauley mentioned Big Brother, and some other folks did mention some other reality things.
Yeah, I didn't think of a game show.
That Survivor,
that would have been
Price is Right would have been one.
Yeah.
I think a good choice.
Some very funny, my good buddy Paul Preston, 60 Minutes. I mean, come on, people. And,
I think it's past its 60 minutes already, don't you think, guys?
The CBS Evening News. Come on. I will say that the overwhelming call for this, and it is going to be on our Mount Rushmore, is The Walking Dead. So that is almost a depiction. The title itself describes the show. It is dead, but for some reason it's still walking. Todd Weber mentioned season 10 is being heralded as the "That's Still On" by most former viewers. Kevin Fox and Billy Stanek both mentioned The Walking Dead. Overwhelmingly, even more overwhelming than Walking Dead was Grey's Anatomy.
It's on season like 19 or something.
Season
insane.
100. Oh no.
Uh-oh. The time portal is opening. For those of you who don't know, we have a time portal here in the studio, and every once in a while, our president.
Hello, everyone. This is your president for the last 400 years, Dwight D. Eisenhower. I address you from the cryogenic hyperbolic chamber in which I have been encased, in order that I may be your president, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Of course, I'm a 5-star general who helped plan the invasion of Normandy, which was a huge success. I created NASA and the interstate highway system. So if you want to argue that I should be president, go fuck yourselves. Okay? I am the 34th president of the United States. This is sounding like a book report, I realize. And I am happy that I am still currently the president, I believe I am, of the United States. Is that true, gentlemen?
Okay. Just nod. He's got the gun.
Oh, sure. He's got the entire military-industrial complex behind him.
The entire military. I warned you of the military-industrial complex.
Yes, sure. You are still president, sir.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I would also like to let you know that the D stands for "Don't you think I should always be president?"
I didn't know that.
Okay. All right. Well,
that doesn't fit on like one of those forms that you fill out.
Yeah, you'd run out of little boxes, I think, if you had to fill that out at the DMV.
All right, gentlemen, wheel me away. Hey, guys, what's up?
Hey, another weird thing is Jeff, for some reason we can't figure out, he can't be in the time in the room when the time portal is activated. He gets too queasy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I'm very sensitive to
time portals.
Time portals.
I understand time displacement works is Jeff is displaced to the time period in which our visiting president, because you can't. It's like a pop in space. You know, you take one out, you got to put something back in there. So Jeff, what was it like in 1958?
Crazy times it was.
When
did you tell him that Andy Griffith show was going to run a bit too long?
Yeah.
Should have warned them.
I warned them all. I warned them all. You know what I said?
I got to look up and see if Dwight Eisenhower was president in 1958.
I said this polio stuff. You know, it'll be the last major disease we ever have to deal with. So don't worry about eradicating.
Once we get vaccines, we never have to worry about vaccines ever again.
1953 to 1961. Got it right.
Oh my God!
Spot.
And this new television thing—that's how you should pick one of your presidents in the future. Yeah, whether they're entertaining on television. Okay, so Grey's Anatomy. Did I mention that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But right before you
danced
jumped
around it.
Yeah. Well, I jumped. What are you talking about? You guys are really mad at me right now, so I'm just going to make it quick. Okay, Grey's Anatomy, Holly McBride, Jim Babcock, Brent Dyer, Melissa Gallo, Harp says Grey's Anatomy. Of course, she says she still watches it, though.
She's part of the problem.
Typical woman.
Yep.
Also, my father-in-law watches Grey's Anatomy, so I shouldn't say that.
Charlotte Hannah, Sam Hain, they all mentioned it. Some other cool mentions. So Grey's Anatomy is on the Mount Rushmore.
Chink, chink, chink.
Chink. Okay. Oh, we can't say that.
Wait a second. So these viewer points are getting on there now.
Why not?
So Walking Dead and Grey's Anatomy?
Walking Dead and Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
These are not on the Mount Rushmore, but
non-scoring
choices. Bob DeRosa made a really interesting comment. A couple people, our good buddy Bob, who's been on the podcast, mentioned the X-Files. And when I think about it, that's a Fox, right?
That's a good choice.
Wasn't that a Fox?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, and that's another one where the lead left and they decided to keep plowing through.
Which is funny, though, because I feel like another comment was Supernatural. It's been on for like 20 years now. So there's another thing that was a Monster of the Week.
It's the wings of fantasy shows.
Yeah. So it almost feels like those kind of carried over for each other. our buddy Adam Felix and Mark Taylor and Nick Condon also mentioned. Oh, sorry, Adam Felix mentioned X-Files. The Office was an overwhelming. Once the lead leaves, the guy who was in feature films, the guy who was the comedic center of it, leaves.
The Robert California character and episodes were not bad. He had such an energy to them.
Don't know that one. Yeah,
it's what's
James
his name?
Spader.
James Spader, and he was just
weird.
He was just
weird,
full on James Spader, and it was delightful for a season or so.
I will say my good buddy Jeremy Cohen mentioned Game of Thrones, which I think was almost a universal kind of thing where we wanted to see it, but we didn't want it to end that way.
I think people wanted it to go on longer. I think people thought it ended too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it rushed.
Yeah.
To stick the landing.
Yeah. And I'll say our good pal Fawn Foster mentioned Walking Dead, and also any of the Housewives shows, and but then Lost was a big thing there. People were saying by the last season they didn't care; they just wanted them all to die.
I think Lost,
and they did. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think Lost had a issue where it didn't know what it was doing from season 1. It was unclear where it was going from season 1, so it felt very meandery for a lot of it.
I don't feel like they had a point B that they were necessarily going to.
Yeah.
So then they just kind of they got lost.
Mm-hmm. So
good one, Richard.
Michelle Kewig, Robert Thurmond, Margaret O'Hara mentioned Lost. And I want to announce what I think are the winners, and that is The Simpsons. And also I want to choose The Simpsons. I get one more, and you know what? Screw Happy Days. So Happy Days. Okay. So this has been the Mount Rushmore of shows that went on way too long, and I want to thank all the people out in the Facebookosphere. What's wrong, Richard?
Should have done Joe Rogan podcast. That would have been that's a show that's gone on far too long.
Wait, he's here. He's going to kick your ass.
He's got me in a triangle choke.
No, but he's stoned. He's going to forget it's all happening. Okay, this has been the Mount Rushmore of episode of Satan. And my name is always Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
Say that.